I was in Springfield, Missouri when I was in physical therapy and learned about therapy dogs and what they could do to help people in physical therapy. I watched these dogs interact with some of the different various patients that were in there, and I decided I wanted a dog that could help me because I saw some of these dogs picking things up for people that dropped them, retrieving items for them that they requested, such as a phone or a remote. They would alert when somebody knocked on the door, and I watched people come in and practice with these dogs. There was all kinds of stuff going on in this physical therapy department. People were testing for their wheelchairs. People were testing for driving abilities. They were seeing what they could do. All kinds of different stuff was going on in this big facility. And I would watch people come in and train with these dogs. The dogs would open a refrigerator for them, all kinds of various things. They would drop a utensil while they were cooking. The dog would pick it up and hand it to them. And I was just amazed by this stuff that I was watching. It's something you pay for to go watch in the circus, right? You watch the lions interact with the lion tamers, and you go see these shows of these trained animals, and here this animal is virtually interacting and talking with you because you seem to have a connection. They can understand what you're telling them, and you learn to read their body language. I wanted one of these dogs for myself because I was home alone a lot. I was disabled. I'm in a wheelchair. When my wife, who I call my guardian angel, is at work, I fend for myself. If I dropped something on the floor, it stayed there until she got home. If I went out and I dropped something, I would have to ask a stranger or find an employee while trying not to run over my phone or figure out how I'm going to pick up my car keys or whatever the situation would be. And that's one of the reasons I wanted a dog. I applied in 2015, real close to 16. And because I was in Springfield, Missouri, my headquarters was in Ohio. And I had to drive up there for the interview intake application process. It was a pretty good drive. And my wife and daughter, my youngest daughter, went with me. It was a very interesting, quick turnaround trip. We went up and did the interview, went through the motions, learned about the dogs, and went back home. I was told through the application process that the waiting list could be as long as 3 years. Like I said, I went in 2015, 2016, 2017 is when I decided to relocate to Las Vegas, Nevada. And Las Vegas, Nevada is in a different region for Canine Companions than Springfield, Missouri is. So I was unfortunately informed that I would be on the bottom of the list when I moved to California, or when I new region. So my wait list would restart, but I needed to move. It didn't take those 3 years to be notified, and I was over the moon when I was selected to go to training in Southern California. I didn't know what to expect, and I went into the whole training process with an open mind, as I had a golden retriever that I had lost years before, and it left a hole in my heart, and I was not sure how the whole process was going to be. I wasn't looking for a replacement of my dog Sadie, as I didn't believe that would be fair to my new service dog and the relationship we were trying to build. I wanted to go in with a clean slate and a totally open mind about who this dog would be and what to expect. I was pleasantly surprised by the way the whole thing went. We were in kind of like a camp type structure. We were all staying in a building that was laid out kind of like I would picture a camp or something. There was multiple different rooms with community centers that were attached, and a big, huge kitchen with a big living room type area that we could all kind of hang out in and play games and interact with and talk and get to know each other, but then break up into different groups and have our training sessions. And that was a pretty intense training session. It was pretty hard on me, and I'm not going to lie. I'm not used to a rigid schedule like that, but it was one of the best experiences I've been through. And a couple days into it, we were working with different dogs, and we broke up into groups, and my group had, I believe, about 8 people in it, and we were in these different rooms, and there was crates of dogs, and there's probably 12 to 16 dogs in the room I was in, and they would bring these dogs out, and you would interact with the dog for just a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, and then it was like musical chairs. They would switch the dog, and you would interact with the other dog, and you would switch, and you would interact with another dog, and they did that. And then I believe it was the next day, we did that kind of thing again, and they kind of cycled it down. And I ended up being paired with a dog named Laredo. And my understanding of it was that we were going to keep cycling, that this was just kind of a temporary fix or a temporary pairing. When they started cycling the dogs through, the first dog I got looked exactly like Sadie. And I was kind of like, well, let's see how this goes. Didn't act like Sadie. And I was trying to get all of those thoughts out of my mind. Cycled through. I ended up getting a black dog and was paired with him. His name was Laredo. I thought it would be a temporary pairing, and he went to stay the night with us in the room. And we set up the bed and the crate for him and everything. And the first night, and then we went through the training again the next day, and then the families came in. I believe on the 4th day or the 5th day, I can't remember. It's kind of a blur. But the training families came in for the graduation, and I remember there were 2 or 3 different families that were there, waiting for the graduation dogs to go through as the training participants. It's pretty confusing, but what happens is I receive the dog. The dog, the puppy trainers or the puppy raisers are the people that hand over the dog to the recipients, and they do it in a graduation type process. Those puppy raisers come in from around the state, and Laredo was from Colorado, so they'd come from Colorado. I didn't know any of this, and we happened to be kind of congregating in that living room. There was several of us that were kind of together, and they had some of the puppy raisers were at a table doing kind of an orientation thing. And I remember that Laredo was doing something, and I corrected him, and I said Laredo, and I jerked his leash, and 2 of the people at the table kind of sat up and looked over, and I didn't really pick up on that. They told me about that later. But they had identified who had Laredo, even though they weren't really supposed to know yet. So a little click in the matrix there. After the dog selection was made and the groups started to come back together, there was 2 different training classes. I believe 2. There might have been 3 training classes that were going on at the same time. And all of us got to come together, and we would do some outings. We would go to the mall for some extended training or go to different things. Laredo's brother got placed with someone from the other class. Laredo's brother's name's Lariat. And because all the puppies that are in one letter are named with the same letter. So you would have all these L dogs, or all these G dogs, or all these B dogs. Whatever the litter was, all the names would start with that same letter. So he had Laredo, Lariat, and I believe he had a sister. But he's a black lab. I keep pointing behind me because he is laying behind me. And he's also up on the mantle right there. And he's a black lab. And his brother is a golden lab retriever mix. And the girl who ended up receiving Lariat and I formed a friendship and communicate and keep in touch. My wife does a lot more of the communication than I do, just because, that I'm a guy. So,